Hi, Michelle. Rebel Therapy Podcast, episode 29. Amazing.
Hey.
You are going to kick it off today.
Yeah, what's feeling relevant for me, and I think it's definitely coming up for people in my practice, is seasonal affectiveness disorder. So SAD, obviously very relevant. And it's even something that I feel resistant to talk about because it is something I struggle with. And there's something that feels inherently almost depressing to talk about, but it does feel very relevant this time of year. Like the darkness, the coldness, the shift of the season. And we're mostly out of that beautiful fall weather and trees, although there's some leaves hanging on. We're going into that descent into winter. I always feel such a resistance to it. And then I hit a certain threshold and I'm just like, all right, and I'm in the bath of sad. Not that I stopped trying to do things to help, but I keep thinking it'll be different every year. And it's just, what about for you? What's your relationship with seasonal affective disorder?
I wouldn't say that I meet the criteria for it necessarily. I just hate the winter. Having said that, when it's a cold day and as long as I'm doing something interesting, if I'm skiing, for example, and it's sunny, I'm okay. I don't love it. When COVID happened, I ended up paddleboarding all year round because I couldn't go anywhere. And so I ended up paddleboarding at -4 in February on Lake Ontario. That changed my relationship to winter a bit. Before that, when I was running even more than I am now, I would run year round at -10 degrees with a balaclava and little crampons on my running shoes so I wouldn't kill myself on the ice. And that changed my relationship with winter. But at the same time, if I'm being honest, the relationship shift is, you can't break me. That's how I feel about winter. It's not sad exactly, but I'm not sure if it's healthy or not. But that's how I get through. It's more like a screw you to the universe. You're going to be this cold? Well, I'm going to best you. Probably says something about me.
Yeah, it's like you take a combative stance towards it, and that gives you the motivation to push through. Things they tell you to do when you have SAD is to exercise, even though that might be one of the last things you feel like doing. But even if you're not going to run outside, it helps mitigate it. I hurt my back as it was getting cold, so I couldn't do any exercise for a couple of weeks. And I think like the combination of both was very difficult. I also cracked out my handy dandy SAD lamp, full spectrum lighting, which is another thing that helps with it. You have to sit pretty close to it and it's literally as bright as the sun. It feels like you have to do that for 20 to 30 minutes. It's shocking at first. You're like, wow, I didn't realize it was so dark out, or like that the sun was so dim. And then once you actually kind of get used to it, and I can actually feels good in my body. Like, oh, wow, this is something I actually need. My body starts to let it in and it actually feels good.
Well, that's interesting because my entire house is festooned with plants that keep them alive because I live in Toronto. I take them out in the summer and they burgeon and double in size, but then I bring them back in the winter and my entire house is lit with grow lights on timers. So it's not for me, it's for the plants, but maybe there's an impact there. I don't know. As you talk though, I hear what you're saying and it makes sense to me, but increasingly, I don't think I'm impacted by it in a clinical way. I think I just don't like the cold and I would prefer the summer all the time. But I think that between the two of us, maybe we encapsulate a large degree of the population because people who are actually suffering from SAD, like you, and then people like me who just hate it. Tell me a little bit more. I don't know that much about it from a clinical perspective. What are some of the other suggestions that they make in terms of how do you combat SAD?
So yeah, I would say like I've hit on two of the major ones.
Exercise and light.
Yep, it has to be a full spectrum light, which you usually have to get, and you have to sit close to it. There's actual physiological things happening. And there is also like, sometimes people do like CBT things for it. I haven't done any for it, so I don't know. I think part of it also, honestly, is the acceptance of it and then looking for those supports for yourself. So it's not just to be like what you're saying, oh, the winter's hard for me, I don't like winter. To be like, no, actually, this is a clinical problem for me. And I don't think people always realize that. Yeah, like the difference. So I think that's kind of an important thing to suss out for yourself, whether you actually feel a physiological shift as opposed to just a resistance to the actual weather.
Fair. What I'm hearing you say, and I agree, there is a clinical distinction here, and any diagnosis needs to be made by an actual medical professional, right? Somebody with a doctorate in medicine. So having said all of that, everything you're describing, whether it's what you're feeling or what I feel, is physiological. And the
Yeah.
supports seem to be physiological as well. And I like that. It speaks to a lot of the stuff that we talk about from a Gestalt perspective. It's like your brain is doing its brain thing. But even if that is difficult to navigate, we can focus on our bodies, right? And from a somatic perspective, if we focus on our bodies and what our bodies are feeling and what our bodies are experiencing and what our bodies are telling us we need for support, if we're able to listen to our bodies, it's maybe not the entire solution, but it's a significant part of it, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like if you're not able to check in with how you're feeling and you're constantly resisting it, it makes it difficult to know what will help you, right? Because you're like, I can't even feel what's actually going on for me. I'm completely in my head or rushing or pushing against it.
As somebody who knows a lot about resistance from a personal perspective, that doesn't preclude my knowing things, right? So
Yeah.
if I notice that I'm resistant, and you and I've had lots of conversations like this where you've said a thing that was totally normal and legit and interesting, and I'm like, I feel really resistant. It's a physical feeling. And if
Yeah.
I'm able to notice, at least as an entry place, right? Okay, I'm feeling resistant. Cool. What does that actually feel like? And I'll say this to clients, like I can feel between us, I think you feel resistant, right? And it's not a judgment thing. It's just
Yeah.
suddenly there's like a wall between us, or I feel like I'm being kind of pushed back from you or whatever. And that's a really interesting place to start. If I can do that even for myself, I'm noticing that I feel really resistant. For me, that's like a holding back. There's usually a bit of a tensing. There's a little bit of like a whatever that feeling is. I'm not really quite sure. But if I can sit with that, it's usually my stomach, sometimes in my chest, usually my stomach. If I can sit with that for a second, my body tells me something. There's always a reason that I'm resistant. It might not match the reality of what's happening between us right now, but there's definitely a legitimate reason, and there's information. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, right? So whether
Sure.
you walk into it, you're like, whatever, running against the wind with your fucking balaclava on, that's cool, whatever. Or you find that you're being super resistant. Either way, your body is responding. And if we can stay with our bodies long enough, we are privy to information that helps us make good choices. Yeah?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think more what in the framing that I was sort of talking about resistance was more like resistance to even feeling any sensation in your body. So not even being able
Yeah.
to bring enough awareness to be like, oh, resistance feels like this in my body. You're trying to stay above the fray and constantly distracting yourself, constantly moving, constantly talking to somebody, constantly consuming something. And it's
Yeah.
a coping strategy for sure. What does it take to have that support, to be interested in how your body's actually feeling, even if the place to start is resistance?
Or possibly have the capacity to do that. I'll talk
Yeah.
to clients. This has come up many times. Maybe it is because of the time of year or whatever. I don't know. But recently, this has come up a lot where people have told me, like, I have these feelings, but I don't really understand it. So I just sort of push through. And it's like, hold on, hold on, hold on. I think that truly trusting ourselves is getting to that place where I can feel that my body is doing something, whether that's numbing or resisting or tensing or whatever it is. And I might not intellectually understand in this moment why my body is doing that thing. But I think trust is where you go, I don't know what's happening, but I know that something is. And
Yeah.
I can say from personal experience and also with all of the professional experiences that I've had, there's always a reason. It makes me think of like gravity. Gravity always existed before we knew what it was. Like when we figured it out, cool. Now we have a name for it, but it was always there. And I feel like these things that happen in our bodies are similar. Yeah.
I agree. And I think what I'm often working with, like for myself and with clients, is to actually value your own experience and believe
100%.
yourself. You know,
Believe
we're
yourself. That's it
you are
exactly.
so quick to dismiss or have those inner voices, or even have people outside actively dismiss your experience,
Yeah.
right?
Or learn that you, like your whole life, maybe you've learned that you have to justify. Many of my
Yeah.
clients have learned to justify their feelings, and I'll stop them. I believe you. Like the first time they say it, I believe you. And they're a little bit shocked. It's like, no, you don't need to justify. The fact that you feel it makes it so. That's it. Full stop. And then
Yes.
from there, your brain comes back online and you figure out what to do about it. But the basis of all of this, the first step is to acknowledge and accept that this is how I feel. Not to question it, not to wonder why necessarily, but just acknowledge that this is where I am. Sit with that for a sec. And then let's figure out why, what can be done, how can we mitigate, how can we support, whatever. But that's part two. Part one is just acknowledging that this is something that's happening.
Yes. Acknowledging, believing it, and believing that it matters.
I love that.
Because I think sometimes people can get to that point of like, yeah, I know I can feel this, but like, who gives a shit? And it's like, I do, first of all, as your therapist.
But I think that ideally, and sometimes I'll say this, is like, it doesn't matter whether I do or not. It needs to start with you, actually.
Absolutely.
I mean, of course it matters if I do as a therapist, but we can't control what other people think, feel, perceive, whatever. So it becomes even more important, I think, to truly believe yourself. And then from there, like that to me is the basis for that foundation upon which we can build whatever else, right? But I need to know myself and believe myself and know that, yeah, it is sad if that's what it is, or it is depression if that's what it is, or it is anxiety if that's what it is. It doesn't matter. But the ability to sort of trust what I know to be true in my own body as a starting place.
Absolutely. That's one of the major supports I've gained through becoming a therapist and doing therapy. This is my experience. I believe my experience. It matters to me. These are the things I'm going to do to help myself. It doesn't actually matter whether anyone else believes my experience. It's great to have that reflected back and to have people supporting you, but just like that baseline level of support we've talked about, I have me. So it's great if you have me, but I have to start with having me first.
Yeah, the fact that you have me is a nice to have, but the fact that I have me is essential.
Yes.
Through sad or anything else. So should I give you a balaclava for running in the winter?
I already have one for biking, but it doesn't really give me any boost. It's more just to get around quickly in Toronto.
Oh, I get it.
I'll get back to the healing my back, which is better. So that will be a huge part of helping my SAD with all my other supports I've already developed around the year. And then I just have to add a few more extra this time of year. So yeah.
Just bask in the sunlight like a flower.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's go to Honduras and go paddleboarding.
I would love just the idea of being somewhere warm right now. I know we're not even that far from feeling warmth outside, but I would love to just teleport somewhere warm for an afternoon. It would make such a difference.
I agree.
For listeners out there, taking stock of yourself at this time of the year and how you're feeling. Are you like Katie, where you hate the winter and you're fighting against it and running in it, being like, screw you, winter? Or are you more on the spectrum of like, maybe you actually have seasonal affectiveness disorder and you need to look into that a little bit more, or somewhere in between where people kind of lie with that? Or there are people who love winter. You know, my dad loves winter. He's a skier. He loves the snow. So it's like, there are people like that as well. And that's just not us.
Not us. So hey, if you want, leave us a comment on how winter affects you. Where do you fall? And as always, like and subscribe. It helps us out. Thank you.